The book of 2 Kings is the 12th book in the Old Testament of the Bible and the 4th book in the historical books section. It was written by an unknown author, but is believed to have been compiled and completed during the Babylonian exile between 587 to 538 BC. The book continues the story of the Israelite people, focusing on the reign of the kings of Israel and Judah. The book of 2 Kings is a continuation of the narrative presented in 1 Kings, and it picks up with the death of King Ahab of Israel. His son, Ahaziah, takes over as king, but he only reigns for a short period before he dies due to injuries sustained from a fall. The throne is then passed to his brother Jehoram, who rules for 12 years. During this time, the prophet Elisha continues to serve as a spiritual advisor to the king and the Israelites. However, the kingdom of Israel is plagued by corruption, idolatry, and recurring invasions from neighboring nations. King Jehoram is faced with constant battles against King Hazael of Aram. Eventually, Hazael conquers and devastates Israel, capturing many of its people and forcing them into servitude. In Judah, King Jehoram is also facing difficulties. His reign is marked by idolatry and continual wars with the Edomites and Philistines. During this time, the prophet Elisha predicts the death of Jehoram and the rise of Jehu as king of Israel. After Jehoram's death, his wife, Athaliah, takes over as ruler of Judah, but she is quickly overthrown by Jehu. Jehu becomes king of Israel and immediately takes drastic measures to rid the land of idolatry and false worship. He also fulfills Elisha's prophecy by killing King Jehoram of Israel and King Ahaziah of Judah, along with Jezebel, the infamous queen and wife of Ahab. However, despite Jehu's initial efforts, he does not fully turn away from the sins of his predecessors and continues to lead his people astray. After Jehu's death, his son Jehoahaz takes over as king of Israel. However, he follows in the footsteps of his father by continuing to practice idolatry and not turning back to God. As a result, the nation of Israel faces continued turmoil and invasion from surrounding nations. In Judah, the throne is passed to King Joash, who is only 7 years old at the time. He is mentored by the high priest Jehoiada, who guides him to serve and follow the ways of God. Under Jehoiada's guidance, King Joash repairs the temple and restores the worship of God, bringing a time of peace and prosperity to Judah. However, after the death of Jehoiada, Joash turns away from God and begins to worship false idols again. This leads to the destruction of the temple and the fall of Jerusalem to the Arameans. King Joash is assassinated by his own officials, and his son Amaziah takes over as king. Amaziah reigns for 29 years and leads Judah in battles against its enemies. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Israel, Jehoash takes over as king after the death of Jehoahaz. He also continues to engage in idolatry, but the prophet Elisha foresees that he will defeat the Arameans in battle. Jehoash follows Elisha's instructions and strikes the ground 3 times with arrows, securing a victory for Israel. However, after Elisha's death, Israel faces a period of moral decline, marked by wickedness and idolatry among its kings. The prophet Amos is sent to warn the Israelites of God's judgment, but they do not heed his words. As a result, Assyria invades and conquers Israel, forcing many of its inhabitants into exile. In Judah, Hezekiah becomes king after the death of Amaziah. He is a righteous king who follows in the footsteps of his ancestor David and leads the people of Judah back to serving and worshiping God. Hezekiah orders the destruction of all idols and restores the temple, leading to a revival of faith in the kingdom. However, after Hezekiah's death, his son Manasseh takes over as king and leads Judah into a period of idolatry and sin. He even goes as far as to offer his own son as a sacrifice to a false god. As a result, God allows the Assyrians to conquer Judah and take many of its people into exile. After Manasseh's death, his son Amon becomes king but continues his father's wicked ways. However, his reign is cut short when he is assassinated by his own officials, and his son Josiah takes over as king. Josiah is a righteous king who restores the worship of God and orders the repairing of the temple. During this time, a copy of the Book of the Law is found in the temple, and Josiah leads the people in a renewed covenant with God. However, despite Josiah's efforts, Judah's fate is sealed. The Babylonians, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, conquer and destroy the city of Jerusalem, taking its people into exile. The book ends with Jehoiakim, the last king of Judah, Being released from prison by the Babylonian king Evil-Merodach and given a seat of honor in the Babylonian court, the Book of 2 Kings serves as a warning and reminder to the people of Israel and Judah that obedience to God leads to blessings, while disobedience leads to destruction and captivity. It highlights the importance of having righteous leaders and the consequences of following after false gods. Despite the continuous cycle of sin and repentance among the kings and the people, the book also shows God's faithfulness in fulfilling his promises and preserving a remnant of his people to one day rebuild and restore their kingdom.